So, it is the second Sunday of the month, and as we are often doing, when we are lucky enough to do so, I get to interview somebody, have a conversation. We get to talk about whatever tickles our fancy. So I thought it would be nice to talk about hats. What is your favorite technique? Do you prefer a wide brim or a small brim? And Nikki was kind enough to bring some hats too. So,
that's outstanding.
Yes, yeah. Nikki actually brought extra hats for us, and I love that. No, this is Maurice King. How long have we known each other? I think I started over at Cedar Hills 2016. Is that about right?
That would make sense. You were in the midst of your seminary journey well before I had considered starting my own. And it was lovely to have your pastor at our church, Cedar Hills UCC, which is over on the other side of the hill where my wife and I live. And so that is where our journey began.
Yes. I always like to start these off with two very important things. First, with my cell phone, because I want us to all know that this conversation will stop at some points.
I like that.
And then we'll be able to get coffee and cookies. And I am starting this at 30 minutes. That means this will not go longer than 30 minutes, probably.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do one other thing as well. I think I saw Miss Donna taking pictures.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do the same sort of thing that, concert folks do. Have you ever been with an artist that says, wait, I want to get everybody. So hold on. We're going to do this as well, too. Here we go.
Palms up.
And these amazing beings back here as well, too, particularly with that hat. Oh, come on now. This is way too good. I love it. Okay, thank you. We're good.
And another long-standing tradition for me with these conversations are our first question, just simply, how would you like to introduce yourself? We sent out a bio earlier this week that I took from your podcast page, but when you're introducing yourself to folks, what do you prefer for them to know about
you? I am fortunate enough to be first the son, so I honor my ancestors who, without them and our God, I would not be here. I am a brother. I am also fortunate enough and honored to be a husband and a father and a grandfather. I've done many things in my life from a work and career standpoint, but I have learned over time, or try to lean into, that which we do does not define who we are. But those elements that I started with identifying are ones that I not only can't deny, but also am quite honored to be able to share, particularly that of grandparent.
Yeah.
And particularly talk about purpose. So I love that.
So you are a man of many hats. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you can share other meaningful hats with us. You mentioned grandfather.
Yeah.
You also mentioned son and spouse. I guess I'm wondering about, what are some of the hats you've had around work?
Yeah.
Work hats.
Yeah. Again, going back to my ancestors, so my father was a chemist by training, for his academic training and then his first career. My mother was a home economist who went on to become an executive within Dairy Council of California back in the late 60s. And that's a huge thing on many levels for a Black woman at that point to be in a role that, I remember this as a kid. She had a company car and traveled and did all these things. And we think about all that's going on right now in so many ways. But one of the things I really appreciated about both of my parents and still today is that they were folks of different paths. So although my father started off as a chemist, the ending of his career was that of a high school counselor. And my mother, unfortunately, died very young in my life, but I do know that her home economist path was one that was also very much driven by her love of the needle arts and that. So my sister, who is an amazing artist and spinner and knitter and crochet, and I, much past my mother's death, but picked up in the needle trade as well, which is that I sew. And that long about story brings you back to the many hats that I've worn. So finishing up in college, I went into a sales role within the radio industry and then really started to pursue my passion, what I thought was my calling, and that was to work in the apparel industry. And I've worked for a number of companies. I worked for the Gap organization. I've also worked for the limited stores, which no longer exist. And then landed with Nike and was with Nike for 21 years, over a 25-year period. That's what brought us here. We've been here, like we like to say, we've been here for 2 tours of duty. The first one was for 5 years, and then the second one has been ongoing since 2010 that brought us back. And then I also did a little time with the Walt Disney Company as well, too. So I've had a number of different career hats in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I ever tell you about the time that I met Michael Jordan at Nike?
No. Oh, I like that. No.
So we had somebody in Cedar Hills was responsible for the stewardship campaign. And they're like, I can't make it over to the church. Can you just come over and meet me here? So we got something to eat over in like the food court area. And she's on the phone and she's all like really upset with somebody.
Yeah.
And she's like, listen, I got to go meet with somebody real quick. I think we're going to have to be done, but I think you should meet them too. So I go with her, and she starts yelling at Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
She's like, Mikey, I can't believe that you stood me up for breakfast. We've known each other all these years, and you skipped out on breakfast? He's like, I'm so sorry. You know, I had things going on, and you know, we'll get lunch, okay? Well, I just had lunch. Okay, we'll have food. We'll get a meal. All right. Not only am I meeting Michael Jordan, but I'm watching Michael Jordan get reprimanded.
Yeah, I'm going to make a guess that was Sister Slayton.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I love how that speaks to the beauty of both of them. A beloved work colleague, a beloved church member as well, who spent a lot of years at Nike, and you know, a nod to Brother Mike as well too, because he is, and certainly through my experience, I've had a couple of times of meeting him as well too, based on the things that I did within the company.
Yeah.
And I can see where that was not only something that he did, but I'm sure that it was something that he felt, that he honored that in that regard. And good for Mary, being able to do that.
It was very humanizing in a way, like talking about the different hats that we wear in life. You know, he was pervasive throughout my childhood.
Yeah.
You know, everybody I knew wanted to like basketball, and everybody I knew wanted to like the Chicago Bulls because of Michael Jordan.
Sure.
You know, we had watched the really bad cartoons that he was in. Space Jam, which people of my generation are convinced is a masterpiece because we cannot help but watch it with nostalgic glasses, you know? But here in this moment, he was just a friend.
Yeah.
He was a guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm very moved driving up this morning and seeing your sign outside with my name on it, and this conversation about purpose. And there are a lot of stories about.
Don't give away the store here. I know it's on the sign, but
I got you. But still, it is lovely when we can see folks who we see in one context and know that they are human.
Yes.
And that oftentimes, again, what we see is not fully who they are. And I'm so glad that you had an experience that was a really pleasant one that you're able to share in that story. Because there are certainly times that folks have met their heroes and found that they weren't to be heroes and others. So I'm glad that happened.
Yeah. But it also makes me think about the roles that you have today.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the vocational piece of it, but
Sure.
I want to give you a chance to like plug the stuff you've got going on, if you feel like mentioning it.
Yeah.
You have a new role with Pacific School of Religion.
Yeah.
What a tremendously far jump from Nike to seminary. Because I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think it seems really like a stark juxtaposition if it's devoid of that connectivity of like what you see as purpose, you know, how you understand your own journey.
My in school at Pacific School of Religion, as a student, one of the things that we are instructed to do is to explore and make sure that we always identify context, right? Everything that we're studying, everything that we're doing, everything that we're reading, from Bible pieces to others, but thinking about the context. So I think to that end, I'll provide a bit of context.
Okay.
In 2004, as we were leaving Los Angeles and moving back to the Bay Area, which is our home of birth for both my wife and myself, I had started a confirmation path at 42 years old with our brand new pastor at our church, who was there serving as her first call. We as a family, as well as my beloved Kirsten Linford, all started on the Sunday before 9/11. And we grew up together. She grew in the church. We grew as a family. She went on to marry our oldest child, bury my father. We are godparents to her daughter. And that is all relative and contextual, because as I had gone through confirmation with her and we were leaving Los Angeles in 2004 to move back to the Bay Area, I asked her a question, which was, I have no idea what I would do with it, but I'm thinking that maybe I might want to go to seminary. Because I had in my mind, particularly coming from people who were more than one thing, that their journey was not just what they were trained to do, but what they felt they were called to do, in honoring both their history and what they saw as their path leading forward. I felt that same call myself. And so from 2004 until I left Nike in 2020, I was working on trying to figure out how I would go and what I would do if I went to seminary. And it started off, first and foremost, with a big question. How might we? What would you do if you didn't have to work? Well, I'd love to study. And going to seminary seemed like a great thing to do, but I've got to tell you, quite honestly, this is about the closest I'm going to get to a pulpit. So I leave it to trained professionals, and I just provide the support that I can. But one of the things that I determined during that time of discernment to both honor my call was that there is so much work to be done within community. There are people that are hurting, there are people that are in needs, there are ways that we can go ahead and support. And I see what you all do here with this community, that your church is not just the church as a noun, but your church, you're living it as a verb, right? Outside of these doors, and the way that you support community, and those elements are very important. And that is what I really saw as being a guiding principle for my transition. And so I transitioned. In 2004, I joined Nike again in the Bay Area and did that for 6 years, and then got the chance to move back here and was still with the company. And in 2020, I was invited to leave. That's another way It's another way of saying that I was laid off. And that was okay. I had been through a number of job reductions in force. My beloved wife and I both worked for the company during the first tour of duty here. And she, as an amazing human being, really managed the company through one of their first major reductions in force. And so we know what it is to help people transition. Those times when they're not expecting it, when it is most hard. And then other times when you're fortunate enough to have a plan and have a vision. So when I was invited to leave, and it was brought up as, this is going to be a very difficult conversation, the thought bubble that was behind my head was, only for you. Because I knew that this was time. In my walk, I had been saying, I know that eventually I want to go to school, Lord. If you would just, our youngest son is going to graduate college. If I have just a few more years after he graduates with college, I'd be great to be able to go, like 3 to 5 years. Graduated in 2017, so you do the math. 3 plus 7 is 0. So 2020, when it came up, it was time to go. So I took a year, did a kind of personal sabbatical, applied, looked to different schools, applied eventually to one, which happened to be the same school that my beloved pastor in Los Angeles had gone to as well. So she was a patient soul. 18 years she waited from me saying, I think, to, I'm going to do this thing. And that's what eventually led me to PSR. Now, to put it in perspective, so what did I do? So I went to school for 2 years. I graduated with a master's degree in social transformation. What does that mean? It's theological studies through, I'd say, a transformational leadership lens. So what does it look like to put your theological studies in conversation with social justice, transformational leaders, and their journeys? And that's what I studied, which was so lovely. And really it really helped me lean into this work that I want to do, which is be in community. But I think you're really asking what it is that I'm doing now. And I was offered the opportunity to join a team that at Pacific School of Religion has launched an online community-based learning platform. So there's a technology where this resides, where people can go in and take courses. There's content that we've created. And there's this beautiful way that we have now been able to synergize these two, a platform called Quare and content that we house under the PSR Collective, with a number of courses that allow people to expand their education, asynchronously, taking classes on your own, being able to go ahead and take classes within a cohorted learning environment, being able to have courses that are actually facilitated and led by instructors, and even be able to pull other groups, congregations together to be able to do different things. Yeah. And so that's the path that I've kind of taken.
So as you share this journey with me, you name a few things that it sounds like you have a lot more clarity on now. Mm-hmm. But the Mo I knew back in 2017 when I started, by the way, Dory and Mo were very kind to Steph and I when we came to Cedar Hills. They were some of the first people to greet us. Never underestimate the power of a personal conversation when you're new in a community. They were the first to invite us to go hang out and do stuff. We went to the Portland Art Museum. Took an interest in us. But this piece of I'm integrating connectivity and community. You've been doing that the whole time I've known you. And I'm wondering if you have that same understanding about your path that I'm at least laying on top of you. Is that the bigger hats?
Yeah.
Would that be the bucket hat?
Yeah, okay, so we're going to do a couple things here. We had originally planned this in talking about hats, and I had this vision I was going to wear a bucket hat because I love bucket hats. Also, my dermatologist loves me because I make sure that I protect my ears and not just, go out there to have a little bill over my head. But I couldn't do it because as the son of those raised in the black church, I could come in this place with a hat on my head, so I had to carry one. You're good. No,
All right.
hey, you're all good, preacher. Do your thing. So I have with me a hat today that connects me back to my father. His beloved team was the San Francisco 49ers. We often went to the Church of the 49ers on Sunday when we weren't in church. So I bring that here in that regard. But back to your question about the hats and was I aware of this journey? I think I was. I think that as we all kind of go through and question our path, and sometimes we'll go through elements, and there are terms like imposter syndrome and all manner of things. And I have a sister who's 5 years older than I am, who I absolutely adore. She was critical and remains just such a joy in my life in grounding me. And she, by far, is the academician in our family, the same way that my beautiful wife is truly the academician in the family. So I have embraced my role as being that of community and support. And what I've loved about these beautiful women that have been in my life is that they've helped me kind of move beyond thinking that that was just a thing to realizing that it can be the thing, as we all honor our gifts. And so it's the thing, and I was just really happy to be able to go to school for a couple years and lean into that, and now even take that schooling, and through this role that I'm doing with Pacific School of Religion, but just even in life, realizing how it is that I can be even more impactful here within our community. Because as California is our state of birth, we are here in Oregon as our state and our community of choice. And we're looking to do what it is and be more impactful in that community, bringing our gifts as best we can. I don't know if that answered your question.
Oh, no, it does. And this is where I want to make a little bit of a pivot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've heard from Maurice regarding his life's journey, his trajectory, and the hats that he's worn, and the main ball cap that he's wearing now. It goes beyond career. It goes beyond educational path. It's the thing for you instead of a thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I appreciate about your journey is that you've been able to make a pivot 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Instead of being locked into this one way of doing life, the career man. Like, instead of rubbing shoulders with the elites around the world, the Michael Jordans of industry and entertainment and sports, you're rubbing shoulders with theologians and pastors and young folks who are trying to find their way. And I'm wondering what advice you have for folks who find themselves past the career part of their life's journey, or perhaps who may be in the midst of their career but yearning for something else. And maybe they don't have the privilege of being able to vacate their position. How do we put on the hat that fits us best now?
So many beautiful nuggets there. First of all, from an advice standpoint, again, my beautiful wife and I kind of live in this position that we try not to think about providing advice, but sharing our notes. So I have a note that I will share as well, but I'm going to get to this to kind of probably wrap us. Embracing when it is time to pick up the hat and when it is time to put it on your head, and knowing which hat to put on, and then being comfortable that no matter what one you put on, it's the choice that you've made. So now that you go out and you actually do that work. That is hard, but I think one of the most important things about it is leaning into this point of understanding that we are all called to do something. And I'm hoping I'll get a chance to possibly support you while you are out and pulpit Phil. And
Yeah, I've got you down. You're scaring me when you said this is as close as you're going to get to the pulpit.
No, I will share at that point more of my story on truly answering the call.
Okay.
Because I like to say that it's a lot like the phone is always ringing. It's just a matter of if we are willing to go ahead and pick it up. And that's hard. But if you don't pick up the phone, it will just keep ringing. So at some point or another, finding the strength and the courage to be able to say that just because we are doing one thing, there are always other options. And there are always people and other things that are calling us to do. I think about where we are right now on Palm Sunday. One of the biggest joys of school for me was realizing how much I love Holy Week. And for me, no shade, y'all, Easter Sunday is Easter Sunday, but Palm Sunday through Holy Saturday is like, that to me is the answer to your question. That's a dude on a donkey riding in with a clear vision of these same people that are lauding me today will be calling for my crucifixion on Friday. And the pain that I will go through at that point will only lead to the joy that is on the other side. And they will then have to go ahead and work through that pain. So I don't consider myself much of a theologian in that regard, but that's the story I'll share. But I do want to share a story with you. I think I might be over on time, but if you would allow me, I'd love to read something to you. So Reverend Cameron Trimble has a Substack. Many of you might know. If you don't know her, please look her up. And in an email that she shares on a fairly regular basis, this was a story that she shared a couple weeks ago. I also shared this in a training that we're doing. So part of my job that I've been really blessed to be able to do is actually be a co-facilitator for one of these courses with a group of folks that are associated with the Disciples Church through an organization called MBA Cares. And so just last week, I read the same story as a meditation to bring us into the moment for the 3 hours of work that we're going to do. So this is my answer and my share for you all. There's a story in the Sufi tradition about a wise keeper of a sacred mirror. It was said that this mirror could reflect the true nature of anything it beheld, person, place, or event. It showed not what people wanted to see, but what was. Over time, powerful rulers feared the mirror. Its truth disrupted their authority, and so they spread rumors. The mirror was cursed, dangerous, even blasphemous. Eventually, the keeper was forced to hide it deep underground. Years later, in a time of great confusion and distortion, when lies were broadcast as law and beauty was buried beneath fear, a child stumbled into the cave and uncovered the mirror. It didn't shimmer. It didn't shout. It simply reflected back the world as it was, aching, alive, broken, and full of the divine. The child wept, not because the mirror was cruel, but because it was honest. It was at the honesty that something shifted. And the child said, I can see again. Cameron writes, sometimes I think about this story when I look at our world today. We are surrounded by smoke and illusion, crafted images, half-truths, orchestrated distractions, laws rewritten, histories erased, people scapegoated. The project of authoritarianism doesn't just rely on violence, it relies on distortion. It needs us to forget, to mistrust our senses, to believe that up is down and that wrong is right. But the mirror still exists. It exists when we listen deeply to those most harmed. It exists when we sit with our grief without numbing. It exists when we say no to sanitized narratives and yes to the messy truth. Maybe we're all being called to be keepers of that mirror now, not as judges, but as witnesses. The question isn't what's happening. The deeper question is, will we keep our capacity to see clearly intact, even when truth is painful, even when lies are easier? In a time of confusion, clarity is an act of resistance. That is so good. I'm going to read that again. In a time of confusion, clarity is an act of resistance. Reflecting on the real rather than absorbing the illusion is one of the highest spiritual tasks of our time. We are in this together. The words of Reverend Cameron Trimble. I wept when I read this the first time. And I keep it close as a reminder of the challenging times that we're in and the work that we are all called to do, and the reminder that I believe it is all of our job to be the mirror. So you ask, how do you make that change? It's just remembering that when we get up and look in the mirror, we got to look at ourselves. So sometimes it's hard, but it's got to be done.
So it sounds to me, by the way, thank you for sharing that.
It is my pleasure.
Sounds to me like one of the most important things for you, because I know you don't want to give advice, is to see yourself and see the world as it is. And that is essential for how you navigate calling.
Absolutely.
I think that's some of the best non-advice advice that we can give.
And let me be really clear. This is not easy. This is an ongoing task. My time in seminary was not only a gift, but I am so privileged. I mean, first of all, I was laid off from my job of 20-some-odd years. Woohoo, not bad. Laid off of my job of 20-something years, and then was given the gift of being able to go to school full-time, to have a supportive spouse, to have a supportive family, and then to be able to go ahead and put that focus in. Not everybody has that. So here's where I say that you grab and you do it however you can, but just know that you can. And more importantly, you're never doing any of this alone. So lean on your people. God, thank you for the advantages and time to be able to, and be inspired by music. Thank you so much for I still haven't found what I'm looking for. That is so right on time, and so that was beautiful. But it's out there, and we're out there, and I believe in you. I love all you. You're going to do great things.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We are past time, but before we move on, I just want to see if there's any questions. And if not, then I encourage you to let any beginnings of questions you have, conversations that are bubbling within you, and invite you to sit with Mo and Dory after the service if you want. I won't force you.
And I am planning on coming back in July. So
yeah,
there you go.
You could really just let them ferment. You could bring, it's a grape juice of a question now. You could bring like a wine,
Full vineyard, go for it.
Yeah. Any questions? Okay, it looks like we have one right towards the front. And Steve's bringing the mic.
And Miss Rita, right? Is that right?
Rita,
yes.
Thank you. First of all, it's so wonderful having you and sharing your feelings and what you are to help our community in comfort during these hard times. Are you local here?
Yes, ma'am. We live over in Beaverton, just on the other side of the hill.
Oh, what church?
Cedar Hills UCC is our home church over on that side.
Oh, bless you all.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Appreciate it.
And praying for peace. I spread the peace out on Facebook I pray for peace for the whole world, love and peace instead of wars and hatred.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much
it.
for this. I
My
appreciate the
pleasure.
conversation.
Thank you.